My latest trip through the searing mid-July heat of the Nevada desert came in the midst of a rough stretch. The previous Thursday, I lost 2,000 in a flush-over-flush hand against a VIP who had been in punt formation. The next day, I got in a super juicy 5-10 game but ran terribly, losing another 2, most of which to a fire battalion chief who was on a heater. To make matters worse, I screwed up the graphics in my last vlog, making it look like my opponent had a straight when he had really just had a pair of queens. So even though this trip to Vegas was coming during the middle of a global pandemic, I still had to hope that there'd be some magic there and I could turn this around. Vlog 84, checking in outside of one of the most popular tourist attractions in the Las Vegas area, the Neon Museum, the Neon Boneyard. Just had the chance to tour it and see some of the signs, and very cool to see. Pretty strict video policy in terms of interviewing people, but still very cool to see. And to see the Golden Nugget sign, the old one, and the Binion's horseshoe sign right next to each other. Pretty awesome. And then Fitzgerald's right across from that, one of the few that still lights up here. And of course the Hard Rock, probably the newest edition, the big guitar that you'll see here. Kind of a funny story. For Silver State Sites, I always try to interview someone on site for every story. And the nice woman that I interviewed for this edition of Silver State Sites, her last name was Spilatro. And I kind of stopped and I said, that's a pretty famous name here in the Vegas area, isn't it? And she said, yeah, it is. But for me, it's only through marriage. But she did indeed marry into the family of the Spilatros, which is the character played by Joe Pesci in Casino. Even though they named him something differently in that movie, that's the guy he was based on, Spilatro. So pretty funny just to randomly run into a Spilatro. Would never have guessed that that could happen. But either way, as you can tell, things have not been going pretty all that well for me lately when it comes to poker. 2 very rough days back to back. And then, on top of that, I screw up a vlog. I feel like I let my audience down by screwing up a vlog. Sometimes when I put my notes together, I just blindly follow the notes in the editing process and fail to realize that I had made a mistake on the original note-taking when I wrote them down to start with. So, probably not the first time that happened, probably not the last time that will happen. So I apologize for that, but we'll try to make up for it, and we'll try to bounce back here on this trip. The Wynn Poker Room is currently closed, so we're going to head to the Venetian and jump in there and see what happens. After finding the Wynn Poker Room was closed, I made the trip to Venetian and jumped in a 5-handed game. I pick up pocket 7s under the gun and make it 20. The cutoff calls and the blinds fold, so with 40 in, it comes 10, 10, 4, 2 spades. I have no intention of folding here, but I decide to check and see what he does. He ends up betting 20. My plan was to call and lead out on most safe turns, so with 80 in, turns an offsuit 9, and I lead for 30. He makes the call, so with 140 in, the river is an offsuit king. I thought about turning my hand into a bluff, but at the same time, I had never really felt like I was behind in this hand, so I was unsure, to be honest. Ultimately, it goes check, check, and he has 9-5 of clubs and wins with a turned pair of 9s. 4-handed, we get a limp, and I overlimp the button with queen 9 offsuit. With 20 in, it comes queen 5 jack with 2 clubs. The big blind bets 15, and I make the call. Others fold, so with 50 in, the turn is the 10 of clubs, and now he checks. I decide on a small bet here with top pair and an open-ender. I make it 15, which, as expected, he check calls. So with 80 in, the river is the deuce of hearts, and now he decides to bet out for 50. Seems like a lot to ask for me to be good here, as he has struck me as the type to be more of the calling station as opposed to the guy who bluffs. It still seemed a little bizarre, the line he took, but ultimately I decided to let it go. Next hand, I pick up king-queen of spades under the gun and make it 20. It folds to the big blind, who calls. So with 40 in, it comes king-king-6 with 2 clubs. Now he was noticeably steaming here and checks. I decide to bet out here for 25, and, unfortunately for me, he angrily folds. I'm not sure if that steaming should have resulted in me checking back that huge flop or not. We get a $15 open under the gun, and the small blind calls, and I have Jack-10 offsuit in the big blind, and I call as well. So with 45 in, it comes Jack-10-6, all diamonds, top 2, but a monotone board. The small blind checks, and I check to the pre-flop raiser, who doesn't bet. The turn comes the 3 of hearts. The small blind now bets out for 25, and I raise him to 65 here, and just like in the last hand, he angrily folds again. Next hand folds to me on the button, and I get dealt pocket 4s. I raise to 20, and the big blind defends. The flop is 8-6-4, with 2 diamonds, giving me bottom set. He checks, and I bet 20, expecting him to call with any pair or any draw, but he folds. Getting action on big hands is proving problematic. Next hand, the small blind makes it 15, and I have ace-7 offsuit in the big blind, and I call. So at 30 in, we're heads up to a flop of 7-7-6 with 2 hearts. The big flops keep on coming for me. He checks, and I bet 15, and he makes the call. So at 60 in, the turn's a jack. He checks, and I bet 30, and he shows an ace and folds, leaving me to ask the question, can anybody hit anything when I do? The truth about that game was it was pretty lousy. I did not play much longer before racking up and booking a very small win. Well, as you can see, that game was total shit. I even ran really good and still only made $118 in it. So I think that's just the reality right now in Vegas. Games aren't going to be all that good. But the good news is, I'm going to meet up with a friend of ours, and that should be fun. All right, so I am in a Tesla, but it is not my Tesla. It is the Tesla of this man. You know him well.
Welcome to the Ben Beach channel.
Mr. Jeff Boski. I mean, how long have you been in this car now? A month?
Just over, yeah.
So you now join the club of me, Johnny Vibes, Jamin Burton, vloggers, Tesla drivers. I feel it's a great club to be in.
Yeah, I've been test driving Teslas for over 2 years now, and people said I'm never going to buy one, but here we are.
The red Model Y.
Performance.
And performs quite well.
Let's test her out.
Are you doing you're doing a review of this on your channel coming up?
Yeah. Once everything's situated, once all the aftermarket mods are in place, we're going to be, all right, here we go. Bad spot. Freeway on ramp. We got freeway on ramp.
All right.
Gone.
Ultimately, in addition to the Neon Museum, the trip involved shooting Silver State sites in Tonopah at the Central Nevada Museum and the town of Pahrump, Nevada. And on the way back, at Socorro's Burger Hut in the very small town of Minot. Now, since I am no longer allowed to air Silver State sites on this channel, I will be linking them in the description boxes below in this and other upcoming vlogs. So I didn't make any money back in Vegas, but I did book a $1,300 win on my first night after that back at Peppermill. I hope I didn't screw any graphics up this time. As always, please hit the like and subscribe buttons, and we'll see you back here next time.